I have never heard anybody complain so much about Rhianna's last performance. I know you're a huge mega fan, Matt, but I mean, you're talking about her phoning it in, doing this lazy performance. I mean, I've never seen your Twitter account so active before.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in her performance. What is this? What are you referring to?
I figured you'd have absolutely no clue what I'm even referencing.
I have, yeah.
I don't. It's pop culture, man. Her first performance in like 2 years, she did for some billionaire son in like India, and the whole internet is ablaze with their opinions about her not doing a great job or something, as if anybody cares.
Yeah. I mean, I can see people being disappointed about someone they went to go see. But you said it was for someone specific?
It was for like a wedding for like a guy.
Oh.
So nobody went to see this unless you were buddies with billionaires.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it was just people posting videos with their phones who were at the wedding, basically. And they're being like, oh, man, I don't know. People were giving Rhianna crap. Yeah, I was like, it was like $6 or $9 million, some insane amount of money. It's like, of course she's going to do it. What's your problem, guys? Like some dude just paid her a ton of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I was just surprised how upset you were by the whole thing. So
livid.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you missed streams over this. It was wild. It's like no stream tonight because of the Rhianna situation.
Too. I wasn't feeling well, and that probably was the reason why. I just didn't realize it. I was just so enraged.
Yeah, it's like I'm not even like into Rhianna, but it was just all over my feed. I'm like, God, I just have to see it.
To be honest, the algorithm and stuff like that. I'm assuming this is on Twitter. Man,
yeah, Twitter's all like
dumpster fire.
Would you like to see Rhianna and people getting hit by a car before you can look away? I'm just like, oh my God, this is terrible.
Yeah. It's pretty awful.
Good old Twitter. There was a cool one though, where it was like, when they move those giant windmill blades for the huge like windmills.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Like I know of windmills. I don't know. I've never seen them being removed.
They move them on these like huge trucks, like the biggest truck you've ever seen.
Giant trucks. Yes. Yeah.
Just massive. And there's one trying to cross a train track. And I mean, as you would expect, it happened. The train comes, hits the windmill blade, flips the truck, everything explodes. You're just like, how do you mess that up, dude? Like,
I'm assuming they would have called ahead and been like, hey, just to verify there's no trains coming anytime today at all.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Yeah. Or like, hey, when we're going to go across the track, like, let's go quickly. They were like stuck trying to turn it around some corner or something. And I was just like, you idiots, just go. Like, knock the sign down, knock whatever you have to knock down. Like, it's better than the train in.
That's rough.
Good old
I hope no one was
media.
hurt.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. But in other news, man, so much news. I don't even know where to start. There's
just get it going and we'll jump in.
All right. What's your thoughts on Ridgeline shutting down, the studio making Battlefield's single player or narrative rather experience? We don't know if it's going to be a single player. We don't really know anything about what the game was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we have no idea. Well, so it was my understanding that it was being helmed by a pretty well-known, it was a
Marcus
Halo.
Leto.
Didn't he make Halo?
Yeah, he's one of the main guys, I believe, who handled a lot of the narrative elements of Halo. Which, a renowned
kind of
game,
a big deal.
In part for having a fun story that people really got into. So having him on Battlefield was a big deal.
Right.
He was let go as part of the whole studio and several other big projects as well. EA canceled. Well, they fired about 670-ish people, and they not only did they cancel this Battlefield game, but they canceled a Star Wars game that was being made by Respawn, the guys who make the Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games, which have been huge hits. The sequel was a much bigger hit than the first game financially. So you would think that EA would just sort of give them the green light to make more single player Star Wars games, because they're clearly knocking it out of the park. But they canceled it, which is surprising.
Well, I mean, I can only imagine they canceled it because something was not going well. I mean, usually I feel like game companies are not going to cancel a game that is looking like it's going to be good. I could be wrong. I mean, it's happened before. There's been some developers. So the thing is, sometimes it's hard to believe developers like on this topic because they're passionate about it and they're working on it. So they think the game is amazing, but they may not see the bigger picture that EA. Not saying that EA is probably the best judge of what's good.
Well, do you think it could be because the rumors about this game was that it was a Mandalorian-based FPS? Do you think the FPS angle, because I think we were talking about this maybe last podcast, was that shooters were becoming, or maybe I read an article on this, but anyway, it was suggesting that first person was less attractive as
there was an article for the Avium game.
Okay.
Immortals of Avium. There was I think it was Kotaku that, I don't think it was EA that said it, but I think Kotaku came out with an article and said, this is an indication that single player.
But that was an EA game. Okay. So that kind of adds up a little bit then, right? So,
I mean, EA could be looking at stuff like that and be like, yeah, it's tough to sell first person shooter games. At least narratively driven.
Full player. Yeah. So maybe that's what they did. They were like, Mandalorian, pretty popular.
Could be.
Branch of Star Wars goes. It's hard to know.
I can't hear you right now.
Test 1, test 2.
Test 1, test 2. I can hear you now. I was like, I don't hear you.
Got this XLR cable taped on, but I think the tape loosened up, man. I'm gonna crazy glue this thing, man. This is crazy.
You should.
What did you catch?
I caught nothing at all for that last 10 seconds. So basically when you started talking about whatever you were about to talk about.
Oh, cool. That narrows it down for me.
Well, I literally was like, wait a second. Is the internet lagging? No. Okay. I'll say something.
No, I was just going to say that, I thought Mandalorian was one of the more popular branches of Star Wars right now. It's hard for me to judge because I'm not that into most of Star Wars anymore.
Because of the show?
Yeah, and I didn't really like Mandalorian that much, but I know a lot of people were into it. So I would imagine doing anything within the Mandalorian universe as a game seems like a win, but I don't know. Maybe first person's narrative isn't the formula anymore.
Well, I think it's hard because it's really hard to make an FPS game interesting, I think. Very few single player games, I think, get it right. Doom is a prime example of something that does that hit it out of the park because you have so many things going on and there's so many mechanics going on that makes it actually fun. But if you have Call of Duty or Battlefield, it's hard. Because if you don't have the spectacle,
boring, man. Oh my god,
it can be very boring. Yeah. So if you're not invested in the characters and the missions aren't interesting or dynamic enough, almost every single one of them devolves into take a couple shots, duck behind cover, wait for your health to regenerate, peek your head out, and just rinse and repeat. That's the gameplay.
But Matt, some terrorist organization stole a nuclear weapon, and you have to stop them. Aren't you invested?
Yeah. That's it.
Guess which Call of Duty game I'm talking about? It could be
all of them. Literally all of them.
Every single one post World War II, basically.
Including Battlefield. Battlefield had that same, it's always, bigger the threat, the better, right?
Yeah, Battlefield had the same nuclear whatever, and you're just as soon as they started talking about it, my eyes started to close. I was like, what now?
So bringing it back to Battlefield, it's unfortunate that they shut down. And I think a lot of the things were transitioned on over to DICE and Criterion, right? So they're still working on single player content or narrative based content, whatever that might be, because we don't know what they were actually.
We have no idea
what the project was. But I've noticed a trend from EA where they'll hire really high or well-known developers that are known for making incredible single player experiences. And then the projects just don't ever go anywhere. So I don't know if this is EA just not giving those people the creative freedom, and those people at the top were like, this is not what I signed up for. What are you doing? Why are we not, give me free reign? Or it's because, it's just not working out. It just by coincidence. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we should put some context around this in that EA fired 600 people the same week that Sony laid off 900. Like the whole tech industry
it's an industry problem for sure.
Is laying off tons of people, but EA, and when you do this, you cancel the projects that you think have the least chance of making profit, right? From that perspective, I mean, Battlefield's never been known for its single players. People don't go, have you played the latest Battlefield game? And they go, what do you mean, the single player or the multi? Like, no, obviously we're talking about the multiplayer because nobody cares about the single player to an extent. I don't want to speak for everyone, but most people are playing multiplayer. Yeah, the franchise wasn't started on single player. The single player never particularly elevated it to much further. Like COD almost always had a better single player, so Battlefield was always playing second fiddle to them. So it just seemed like whatever, they're just trying to do whatever COD is doing, and this is just phoning it in. But I mean, I hate to agree with the executives on this one, but if I had to guess if a Battlefield single player was going to be a major money maker or an attractor for players to get a Battlefield game, I'd be like, probably not. Based on the way your last ones went, no. But then again, we have Marcus Leto at the helm, so maybe he's taking the narrative beyond just a stolen nuclear weapon or, you know, whatever. Yeah, it's hard to make, I think, a modern military campaign interesting unless you do something crazy, you know, where it's like some future war or something crazy like that. You know?
I honestly don't. I feel like I wish they would go more personal with these stories where it doesn't need to be. You can tell. You can tell. I think you don't have to ramp up the stakes to make something interesting. We're ramping up this. All that really matters is, can you get people connecting to the characters and caring about the characters? And then as soon as something happens to said characters, now you're invested. Now you actually care about what it can be. It can be really small, like very, very small. But a lot lean in on the bigger is better.
Yeah. So it's a shame. Also in context, EA released a statement after this because they saw a lot of the negative press around the whole Battlefield franchise and people being like, oh no, Battlefield's doomed. They're canceling projects left and right because they canceled Battlefield Mobile last year, I think, as well. So a bunch of Battlefield projects have been canceled. They said that there's still more people working on Battlefield than there ever has been in the franchise's history in terms of like just the overall history. So I don't think they're lying there. They still have Vince Zampella at the head. Does this affect
that? I think if he was the one getting kicked, then I would start to worry. Like,
I would be very worried if this was Vince getting kicked, but them canceling the single player, I would say has very little effect on my Battlefield experience, as I don't finish the Battlefield single players unless they're directly tied into some sort of unlock for multiplayer or something, because I just get bored with them. I play a couple missions and I go, okay, this is the whole game. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to do 3-4 more hours of this. Yeah,
I still don't think it's a good look. I mean, I would rather them. It would be nice if they were able to accomplish both tasks of multiplayer and single player and making them, equally interesting. But I do agree. If I had to choose, obviously I'm going to be going more towards the multiplayer.
Yeah. So it is a shame, but as far as the doom and gloom headlines about Battlefield's future, I'm not buying it. I still think there's probably something good coming up, according to the leaks by our good old buddy Tom Henderson.
Tom Henderson.
Tommy Tom. As I call him.
Does he have more leaks? Is there? It's like,
he's got his own website. No, he has been right on a lot of stuff. His latest leak is
not everything. He has not been right about everything, though.
No. But his latest leak was that, I mean, it sounded like basically what you would predict the next Battlefield to be. But the interesting part of his leak was that it's going to have a free-to-play Royale component. And
the old Battle Royale.
But free-to-play. Battlefield has never done the free-to-play component, and we were arguing that it should have been back in Firestorm's days. They could have beat COD to the punch. I was screaming at them like through YouTube videos and emails. I was like, "You idiots! Like, do the right thing, make it free." And they're like, $60 for a game that everybody's hating on during launch. Like, yes, this will be successful. No,
they basically put it out to die.
They did, and it sucks because I thought it had a very good foundation. Solid. Yeah. destruction in a Royale, fantastic, man. Some dude's
Would be
hiding
cool.
in a building at the top of the stairs. You're like, I'm going to call it an arty strike on that building. Like, good luck camping, bro. That was my favorite mechanic, coming from PUBG to that, where you're just like, oh, wait, I don't have to go into the building and get killed by some dude.
The building.
Yeah. Worst thing is like going into a bathroom in PUBG and like finding an ammo on the ground. You're like, oh, ammo. And some dude's behind the door with a shotgun.
Behind the door. Hey, baby.
Yeah. You're like, how long were you there? 20 minutes, dude? Come on.
All day.
Yeah. It's the worst. It's the worst.
What are you looking for the next Battlefield? What would be your preferred, like, perfect Battlefield game? What gimmick are you looking for in the next game?
Dynamic conquest. I made a video about this maybe a year and a half ago, where I was like,
little small objectives around the map that you can capture and stuff.
Yeah. It's like, I don't see Battlefield ever being able to sort of reinvent what the core experience is. You always have to have conquest. But we can evolve conquest to fix a bunch of the dumb issues that it has, improve gameplay flow, drive players to be more invested in the win condition. That's a huge problem that Battlefield has, in my opinion, which is you don't care. It's just a sandbox, so
you don't really care.
Yeah, all the best rounds of Battlefield you have, the memories that you have of it, I guarantee you don't remember if you won or lost to an extent, right? Because that was not the highlight of playing that round. I think they could do a lot to make the win-loss scenario much more interesting, much more involved in the actual experience. So I have a detailed video talking about it, but it would be like having more or less dynamically generated events occur during a match, where it's like, hey, there's a fuel depot over here that we've just found on our scanners. Whichever team captures it first gets 4 tank spawns or something like that, and all of a sudden there's like a little rogue element in the game where the team that's down or losing maybe has all these cool tools to potentially get back on top. I think there's just a lot of fun little things you could throw into the game to give players a little more narrative, creative agency over what's happening in the round,
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they lean more into destruction, though.
Yes.
I really hope that they go more into the destruction route. And also, I know that's hard for games to go from like 128 players down to like 64 again, but I hope they don't do 128 again.
Yeah. I think they could do it, but the workload and the testing required, EA just wasn't ready for it. They didn't have any time to test out the 128 on the new maps, and it was evident at launch. It was a huge disaster.
Oh, yeah. None of the maps were ready. None of the maps. I mean, the Hourglass is probably one of the worst maps in like the history of multiplayer games. Like not even just Battlefield. It is an abomination when it released. It was bad.
I know. I mean, it's unfortunate because 128 had moments that were really cool where you're like, whoa, like I'm a sniper and I've got more targets than I don't even have enough ammo to hit all the targets I have on screen right now. That's cool. But none of it was balanced. So I think they could do it, but to stay on the safe side, it doesn't really add much to the game. Other than as long as a couple moments where you see a crap load of players, so you're like, whoa, it's a huge battle.
Because technically, as long as the map is well balanced, most of those people are going to be spread out evenly around it. And so 128 versus 64, if the map is actually built around and balanced properly, 64, when you're on a certain objective, should feel about the same amount as 128. Yeah. Because if you have like that many people around one objective, then the map's probably not working properly.
Yeah. Truly, I think the only advantage of increasing the player count is occasional spectacle moments where you look over the ridge and you see 10 jet fighters,
just an army
fighting
coming
10
over.
You see a giant army fighting, and that looks really cool. But they've also done a very good job of faking it in other Battlefield games with bombers flying overhead in Battlefield 5 and distant explosions and artillery strike. It makes you feel like there's an extended battle happening further away, and then you don't lose the mass amount of work required to make 128 players. You just fake it a little, and everybody seems to be fine with it.
Agreed. And then I just hope that they lean all in on destructibility, because then that just opens up so much more of a sandbox. I'm not saying I want it to be just like Rainbow Six Siege, because I feel like that's probably asking too much to have that much, destructibility. But man, if you could really lean in, because then it opens up the sandbox to be able to, like, every game will be unique at that point, just like it was back in the day.
It's like macro and micro, right? It's like you're going to look under the magnifying glass or through the telescope, and they have a lot more looking inward, I think, that they can do with the franchise and evolving that. And it seems like one of those obvious things that somehow got lost along the way from DICE's perspective. The players never forgot. Every Battlefield release that had less dynamic destruction in it, players were screaming at DICE the whole time, like, why aren't you guys evolving your best feature? Why aren't you guys taking that further? And they're like,
tornadoes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's also hard. It's a lot of work doing destruction. And if you don't properly plan for it, then it's...
Right, well, because the map then changes, right? Like something that would normally be a hardcover is no longer hardcover, and now you need to make sure that when someone moves through that section of the map, they have something to hide behind. Yeah. Like, it's really challenging.
But they did dial it in nicely, I feel, for like BF3, BF4, handled it pretty well.
Pretty well.
Yeah, and it could have just evolved and gotten better. Like Bad Company 2, the destruction was too much, where you could level an entire city. And it worked when you played on the standard settings where the rounds wouldn't last long enough. But of course, everybody made the servers last forever.
Yeah.
And then you're just playing on basically a flat map where you're like, well, there used to be buildings
everyone's
here.
In the rubble, and then it just becomes the rat game. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not a hard problem to fix. You just kind of standardize time limits and whatnot. But yeah, they could just evolve that, because it is the most attractive part of the franchise, make some more dynamic game modes. I think it is the right choice to throw in some sort of free-to-play Royale experience.
I know a lot of people are not happy with the announcement that, well, not announcement, I should say, because it's a leak, right?
Yeah.
That they don't like the idea, because they see battle royales as a detriment, that it's like it's going to take away from the base game, and they might be right. They very well could, but it could also bring more fresh people to the franchise who would never have tried it before, because they're like, oh, hey. Yeah. The free multiplayer is a lot of fun. The free battle royale, maybe I should go try out the multiplayer.
Well, I'd be curious to know how it's really affected the COD community too, because if you love base COD and you don't care about the Royale experience, I think you can still play the base COD just fine for the most part. But it has taken a backseat in terms of popularity, but that's also just the entire game industry. Battlefield has also taken a backseat to popularity of Royales, because so many of these streamable games have taken the limelight, and Battlefield's not really a good streamable game. I mean, like, you play it on stream and stuff, but
it tells a story. Battle Royales tell a story, and it's really easy to get in and just like have a match. It's really intense. It builds that tension up, and then you win or you lose or whatever, and that story is then complete, and then you move on to the next one, where a normal multiplayer conquest round is you just kind of run around and shooting things, which is fun, but
we don't have the investment in the win condition, right? You're not like, I want to win because, well, what's the reason? And these events have occurred throughout the match that lead me up to like this major win condition. Nothing like that happens in a conquest game. It's just, oh, they got A. All right, let's run back to A. Oh, they got C. Okay, let's go over to C.
Well, I still like it. I mean, I literally played Battlefield 1 last night on stream, and it was great. It was fun. BF1. And it's a spectacle. And it's just like, I just love people swarming around. It's just, it's really unique, because there's really nothing out there like it. But you're right. It does come with some baggage, and compared to some of the more intense or story-driven experiences, it really doesn't hold up.
You know what I want from the next Battlefield game, Matt?
Waifus.
But more importantly, Napoleonic warfare. Right?
There we go. There's the twist we were looking for.
I want, how long did it take them to reload? 20, 30-second reload.
Yeah.
Muskets. I want sabers. I guess you had sabers and cavalry in BF1, which I thought was actually pretty good. But I'm mostly making a terrible transition into talking about the movie Napoleon. Have you seen it yet?
I did not see it, no. I heard it was a little rough.
It was a little rough. I will avoid spoilers in talking about it, although it is a movie based on the history of Napoleon. So, I mean, either you know about him or you don't.
I don't.
I don't know how much I could spoil about the film because it's all historically documented stuff, but there are historical inaccuracies in it.
I was going to say, I think it's exaggerated and there's a lot of inaccuracies.
Yeah, the inaccuracies didn't bother me as much. I looked them up. They were more or less like, he might have not been here, or maybe he didn't have this conversation with this guy, and it's thrown in for dramatic effect. But it was a really weird movie because Napoleon is French. I find it so weird when all these films, the actors have like British accents, but they're playing people who are supposed to be...
from a certain area.
Yeah, just have some weird other accent. They're like, let's just give them British accents. You're like, okay. I found Joaquin Phoenix's performance just weird because he just sounded like Joaquin Phoenix being kind of whiny. And I was like, but it just, it's such a big production. It's a choice. Yeah.
And I do find it strange that when you are going to be doing a period piece around a certain culture or a location, and then you don't really lean into the location and what people would, look or sound like. It's like, okay, that's like a choice. Like, it's a movie, it's for entertainment, and you can do that. But yeah, I agree. It's a bit odd.
And also, I had a hard time placing the timeline in the movie because it covers a big chunk of his life, around from when in his mid-20s to when he finally passes away at like 50 something, and it's Joaquin Phoenix the whole time. And Joaquin Phoenix is like 49 or something. So like in his 20s, he just looks really old. So the passage of time in the movie is really poorly communicated. So you're like, it does show little dates and stuff. And if you were paying attention, you could add it up in your head, but they don't say like 10 years later or something. They just say like, whatever the year is, and then you're like, oh, okay.
Quick math real fast. This has been 10 years. Oh, wow, he looks the same.
Yeah. So that kind of threw me for a loop for a little bit. I was like, wait, how much time has passed? I have no idea because he looks exactly the same. It's still 49-year-old Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. And they also didn't do it. He's supposed to be this kind of military genius, right? He's sort of the Alexander of his time, if you will, in terms of like winning all these crazy battles and doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, he had some huge mess ups as well, but we'll call them slip ups, losing 500,000 men, whatever.
A couple people in Russia, I think it was.
Yeah, what he lost millions, I think. Was
it millions? Holy hell.
I don't know. It was some insane, maybe it was like 600,000 men. I can't remember. It was a huge amount. Lost them all, but or almost all of them. But they don't really do a good job of portraying his military prowess is the weird part of it, where they show the battle. There's like a cool little trick that he pulls off in the battle and then they win. But his wins and losses, they like at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, it just looks like he won some battles and he lost some battles. I'm not seeing the military genius. It was hard to... I didn't know what to make of the movie, really. It was sort of like...
Did you enjoy it at all? Like, would you recommend it?
I watched it for free on, I think Apple TV has it right now.
Okay.
So you can just load it up. I did enjoy it.
I paid for a subscription and it's free.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay.
Yeah, no, I know.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I did enjoy it. Ridley Scott is great at shooting action films, so the action sequences are fun to watch. But as an overall portrayal of Napoleon and whatnot, I feel like I know just as much as I knew about him before the film as after the film.
Well, I never saw it as being like a history piece, and more of it was a piece of entertainment than anything else.
Yeah, but you would want to come away with something, right?
I agree. I do agree. But that's kind of how I interpreted it. That this was more of just, we're going to make an entertaining Napoleon movie.
Yeah.
Like when you go and watch what was it? Abraham or Lincoln the Vampire Slayer,
Okay, this is not Napoleon the Vampire Slayer, though. Napoleon the Werewolf Hunter. You go in knowing what you're going to get with that movie, okay? This is Napoleon.
Abraham Lincoln wasn't okay, all right.
Yeah.
Revisionist history, sir.
The production value was impressive, and it all looked incredible. It was well shot and all that stuff.
What you would expect.
It's just confused the whole time. I was just sort of like, I don't quite understand what they're trying to do with the movie. It just seems like a sequence of events without much of a narrative through line there. But I don't know.
Too bad.
Yeah, it sucks. I think the critics were right on this one. But if you want to see lots of stuff explode in the Napoleonic era, it did look cool,
Sign me up. Transitioning on over very smoothly, I played Sons of the Forest, and I saw you. Did you play Sons of the Forest?
Yeah, it's neat, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I beat it when it originally came out, and now I've beaten it again.
Okay, I didn't beat it, so I don't know about the new narrative stuff, but I read that there's new narrative endings.
There
and
is.
Stuff. Yeah.
And it's janky still.
Oh, no.
So it's a little bit more fleshed out.
Can you kill the final boss with a golf cart? Is that what?
You might be able to. I didn't see any golf carts.
Wait, you didn't use the golf cart?
I did not use a golf cart. No.
Why are we even talking about it? Like you've played 1.0 then, because that's like 50% of the new content is the golf cart.
I guess I failed. I didn't realize that was an option. I didn't know you could bring a golf cart. Actually, no, there's no way you can bring a golf cart down there. There's no way. There's no shot.
Someone will figure it out. I guarantee you. No, there's a golf cart. It's got a GPS map on it. You can get around the map so quickly with it. It's amazing. And you can run over deer and then skin them. So
yes.
It's the new
I did do
meta.
that on accident. It literally was like a deer in the headlights, and I hit it on accident. And I was like, well, Papa needs some food and some animal hide for some armor, so I better get out and skin it.
So what'd you think of it?
I enjoyed it. It was very similar to what it was at launch, but just like I said, more fleshed out. Though I will say, I don't. I mean, this is my critique of what I've been saying a lot. I've been playing a lot of survival games because that's just been what's been coming out lately.
Yeah.
And man, devs, why do you do these time wasting activities where you know
like boiling your own water, Matt?
I don't mind that. I don't mind stuff like that because that makes me feel like I'm just surviving. But there was a moment where you need to, or you don't need to, but I got a recipe and it required 4, I won't say what the recipe is because it's a little spoilery. You get little secrets here and there.
Yeah.
It requires 4 turtle shells. 4.
I got that one too.
Guess how many turtle shells you can carry in your backpack?
Yeah, like 1, right?
3.
3? Okay.
So if you wanted to build this, which is probably not going to be directly next to the shore, right? Because it's a giant island that takes a long time to traverse. You're going to have to go all the way to the shore, take out 3 turtles, run all the way back to your base, assemble part of it, go all the way back to the shore, and then, run all the way back. And
I built my base on the shore. So
well, then there you go. Then that means you're having to run all the way, to like the middle of the map every time you want to go somewhere. But
no, it's there are some stupid oversights like that where you're like, you should have just let me carry 4 of these.
Yeah. And I feel like they did that intentionally. Like they should have known. Yeah. I mean, 3 and 4, no, absolutely. I think they knew that intentionally. So I just hate when devs do that because I really feel like they're just wasting your time for the sake of wasting your time and like padding it out. There is something that you have to craft at the end of the game to even get to the final area. And you walk all the way to this spot. You go down, you do the thing, and then you get this little recipe, and now you got to go all the way back to your base to build it. I'm like,
you should have got the golf cart, Matt.
Are you kidding me? There is a mode of transportation that is much faster than the golf cart.
Okay, like the hang glider thing, or no?
Yes, I didn't want to.
That's been in the game for a while, I think.
Okay,
that might have been.
Yeah, the hang glider is like if you can get elevation, completely trivializes moving around the map, which is great, and they needed that because it was trying to run from one side. When I played the game originally, it took forever.
Yeah. Now here's a question: do the raccoons do anything, or do they just look cute?
They are so adorable. They look like they want to give you a hug, and then you're like, "I'm so sorry." And then this goes, It's adorable.
I thought we were friends.
There's so many of them too.
I know. I was like, holy, this is Raccoon Island, man. This is crazy.
Yeah. But no, I think they did a really good job. It's a fantastic little survival game, especially for reading an indie title. It's not perfect. I have some issues with some of the AI and like how slippery they are, and it can be impossible to like line stuff up, especially their like demon things. I don't even know what they're called, but they're awful. But yeah,
I don't like going in caves
now.
in that game.
That's like the entire game level.
Yeah, I know. So it's not really my thing from that perspective. Like you're in a dark cave and some weird mutant thing comes running at you, and I'm just like, nope. Alt F4. I'm gonna go play Stardew Valley or something. You know, something safe, something simple.
Though that is a game that does a really good job of making you feel like you're getting like a little bit stronger as you go, because you go through a cave and you're like, I now have a pistol. Now I've got a shotty. And now, and you're like, oh yeah, I finally found it.
I know those cannibals are reward. Now we'll see who's gonna skin who, right?
Yeah, and it gives you a really great sense of or you're rewarded for your exploration. So it makes exploration so much more rewarding and satisfying when you finally do come across those really big rewards.
I thought the smoke plumes from the cannibal sites were a nice addition.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit of context of like, oh, like you can look at the horizon line and start figuring things out. You have little tools now. I think more games could use those types of things where you're rather than a mini map, being like, blink, here's the thing that you need to see.
Well, for me personally, that's what I stared at to find like caves and stuff. They still rely on that to be able to really find a lot of the things. Yeah. But there are these camps where there's people, like actually like other soldiers and stuff like that, or whatever they are. And they have these flares. And every time you walk up to them,
they always die.
Then they die. It's like, oh, hey, it's another guy. Let me say, and he's dead. There's another one, and he's dead. It's like, man, we have the worst luck.
Yeah, you're like, I just want someone to talk to. I
know. Well, you do with Virginia. Dude, the ending is wild. It is like, it's super indie jank and like not the ending I was expecting, but it's it's actually kind of a happy ending. So kind of.
Though
they are alluding to another game, which is interesting.
I mean, of course they would make another game. It's wildly successful. Sons of the Force sold like millions of copies. So and the sequel's better than the first one. And I got to give them some credit for some of their crafting stuff, like base building and stuff. It's really cool what you can do with it. It's beyond a lot of other games in terms of like,
it's very intuitive too, where it's like, oh, I can just lift this log and this log, and then it's like thunk. I was like, oh, that's cool. It actually makes you feel like you're instead of it just being like a blueprint that you put down, which they do have, being able to create your own little log cabin by just moving a log and actually just kind of lifting it up. It gives it that immersive feel. Yeah,
it's not just collect 10 woods, build cabin type experience. It feels more intuitive.
And then it's like a pristine cabin,
Yeah. Now, speaking of games that will have crafting, have you seen the latest Dune gameplay trailer stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Dune Awakening. Cool. Yeah, I'm very curious about it.
I don't know how it's being advertised as an MMO.
I didn't see that. Did they put MMO in there? Probably.
I don't know. My entire chat was like, it's an MMO. I'm like, how is this going to be an MMO?
I don't know if they called it an MMO in the trailers. I'd have to rewatch it. I heard them say multiplayer. And maybe
I would figure it'd be more like Rust.
That's kind of my interpretation of it. It's the same studio that makes Conan Exiles, and I guess all the Conan games since like 10 years ago or whatever.
Okay.
So Exile,
they have some experience.
Yeah, they have some experience. You could base build and stuff like that. Arrakis sounds like the ultimate survival landscape, if you think about it though, right? Because you can make water like this super crazy resource now, where in other survival games it's like, yeah, just get some water, you'll be fine, you know? And in this it's like water is like
it's
gold.
Hard to come by.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And the idea that you could get water from killing other players and like drinking the water out of, like getting the water out of their blood, you're like, oh, that's cool.
So metal.
Yeah, it's messed up for sure. The trailer visually looks really impressive. I'm like, oh, this could be a good Dune game. But again, it is a trailer and they are hyping it up in the normal corporate ways where they sit down and have these fake interviews and then go like, oh my God, it's so cool, you know? So we don't know. We just know what an alpha gameplay trailer looks like. And from that perspective, it looks cool.
Yeah, and I want to go back to Rust because I think I'm thinking it's going to be like that in comparison, where you start off small, you start off with basically nothing, and then you slowly build a little house, which the base building looked at least pretty cool with a lot of options, and then you build like a base, and then you have friends, and you go out, and then you have giant wars with other factions, which, you know, could be really cool. It could also be a janky mess because online multiplayer games really thrive on, can they actually make it feel good to move around? I
don't know how much the only thing that gives me a little hesitancy to say that it's going to be like Rust is that they're supposed to have a robust quest system with long narrative quests, missions and stuff like that. So it might not be there might be sort of designated PvP areas, and then,
because I just saw in the trailer there was that big battle, and I was like, that's got to be player driven, right? That looks player driven.
So they have so they have the trailer, then they have like a 30-minute long dev interview, then they have like a 8-minute long dev thing. I don't know. It's all broken up into different places. So I was like writing down all the info, but they have a place, I think it's called like Shifting Sands or something like that, where they say every week the landscape changes and it's the PvP. It's like a major PvP zone.
Oh.
So you can go there and then fight there. So I don't know if...
So it's probably not like Rust then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking the base building happens in maybe a safer area. Then again, they did say that they're trying to stay very true to the survival elements, in that there isn't really supposed to be a safe place in the game. So like that would be more akin to Rust. So yeah, where Rust, it's like, yeah, you can build a base, but somebody can blow up your base. Like,
they can immediately roll up and just take you out.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it'll give you some protection until they kill you through force. So
Rust is I've never played Rust on like an official server, and I really should at least try it at one time. Yeah. Because you see like the strategies and what people do. It's pretty impressive.
Are people still naked in that game, or did they dial that back?
Yeah. You can, I think, customize it though. It's where it like blurs it out.
God, that always cracked me up when that game first came out. I was like, who in their right mind would do this? You're just like, well, there goes all your streaming potential if you're gonna have like...
No, you can stream it.
No, I know. You can turn on the blurry stuff, right?
Well, you can still even do it without that too.
Oh, really? Twitch doesn't have weird stuff. I guess
they
YouTube
do, as long as you don't focus on it. As long as it doesn't become like the focus of the game, and you have the appropriate like tags and stuff, you're good.
Okay, gotcha. Maybe YouTube runs into issues. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure YouTube would. They're going to be. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah. So I'm curious about Dune because it's Unreal 5 engine game. Graphics look fantastic. Clearly inspired by Denis Villeneuve.
I don't know how to pronounce.
I think that's correct. Denis Villeneuve. His movie art style. It's all taking from that, and it looks really cool. Except for some of their weird tank stuff that they have in the game. I'm like, that just looks like any sci-fi tank right there. It doesn't look Dune, but whatever.
Little tank is a tank, though.
Yeah, it's a tank, you know. I don't know. I think I'm willing to give it a shot. Like, as far as survival games go, Dune, sandworms that chase you through the desert, having to like get water, being able to build up your abilities, you can use the voice in it. You can be a melee fighter. You can be a ranged fighter. Like, sounds cool to me.
Yeah, if they can nail it. Yeah, I mean, I'm in. I love the survival genre, though. I do also feel like survival games have kind of plateaued a bit, and that there hasn't been a lot of innovation, or I don't think that there's been a lot of like really well polished ones that have come out. There's some exceptions. You know, Sons of the Forest just had their 1.0, and it's good. And Grounded was really fun, but I feel like a lot of them have the same formula.
AAA survival, right?
There hasn't really. No, I don't think this will be technically one either. I think it will still be like AA, but.
Yeah.
Yes, I really wish that there was a AAA that just went all in, really just, polished it to a fine sheen. It hasn't happened. I don't know why. I guess maybe there just isn't the money there, but it seems like one of the more popular genres, and I don't know why there hasn't been someone to jump on it from a big corporate side.
Maybe it's just because the indie's been dominating it so well. They're like, it's going to be too risky to jump into this now saturated market.
Well, Blizzard apparently shut down their like 6-year project for their survival title.
That's basically Blizzard's thing. They're like, hey, we're going to work on a game for like 4, 5, 6 years and then cancel it. Rest in peace, Star Wars, StarCraft Ghost or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Overwatch was originally going to be an MMO.
I don't understand how companies work anymore.
Neither do I.
How do you throw that much money into a project and then just leave it? You're just like,
I guess when you just have that much to begin with, you can just absorb the cost.
God, Star Wars. Why do I keep saying StarCraft? They're really sleeping on that IP, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think some people at the head of Microsoft now are like, we're capitalizing on that. No way are we not going to be able to, no way are we not going to use StarCraft.
I know. A Zerg based like Terrans versus the Zerg as an FPS or a third person like
just
Helldivers.
Just look at Helldivers. Like Helldivers is just illustrated flawlessly how you could have an incredible Zerg game.
Yeah, for sure.
Or you could even go against Protoss too in that, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, why not both, Have the Protoss meddling in it in some way or whatever. Be cool. They should totally revive that IP in different gaming mediums because I don't see the RTS thing coming back in any sort of big way, at least in the Western markets. I'm pretty sure StarCraft is still huge in Asia. It's like Counter-Strike over there for them, It's just always going to be big.
I think it's died down a little bit, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Well, actually, since I can't shut up about Star Wars for whatever reason, I did hop on to the Squad mod. Galactic.
I saw your video.
Have you played it?
I have not. It made me want to pick it up. How many servers are there? Is it a lot of
you can
big
find
community
servers?
Or okay.
I would say if you're I was just trying to capture thumbnails and stuff. It's harder to like jump into say a server with the map that you want to play. It's not quite that big, but you should be able to jump on and find games pretty easily.
Okay.
So it's got that going for it, but like these guys have been working on it for a while and
looks very impressive.
Yeah, the detail's incredible. It's still I said this in my video on it, but the worst thing it's got going for it is that it is squad ultimately at the core. Yeah. So you're still like shoveling bases, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. And then everybody on comms has got that sort of squad, like, the communication setup. So you're sort of like, we're droids, but are we droids? It sort of feels
They don't sound like droids. I gotcha.
That throws it off just a little bit, but as a mod project, it's incredibly impressive. And it's like, it really is sort of like, what if they took Star Wars seriously? And that's what Galactic Contention does. You're like, holy crap. Like this is, if orbital bombardments were actually Star Destroyers flying overhead, dropping like massive laser cannons on stuff. It looks dope.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reason why I wanted Battlefront to always be more like Battlefield, but they were adamant to just keep it separate and different, which I respect. But man, some of their maps were very strange in Battlefront 2.
I had a problem. I never got into, and I mean, this is just me because I know some people like this, but it always bothered me that if you wanted to do well in Battlefront, you had to take I need to get a hero class progression, essentially. Yeah. And I'm like, but I like playing a jump jet trooper or something. Maybe I just want to do that a bunch. And it's like, nope, you got to be Darth Maul and then be super good with Darth Maul and then go around and slice and dice everybody. And it's like, yeah, but I don't enjoy that as much. It's not the gameplay loop I want. But if you want to do well, the game is basically saying, do well by play this same progression every round. And I'm like, I'd rather just be a clone trooper, Can I do that?
That's fair.
And be high up on the scoreboard too? No? Okay.
I was just always very surprised by some of their map design decisions because they had some cool modes where I can't remember it wasn't supremacy. Maybe it was supremacy, where it starts off as like kind of a mini conquest and everyone's, you're having a conquest and then you go into their capital ship and then the capital ship is like 2 hallways. I'm like, is it 2 hallways? Like flanking routes? Like what? So it's just grenade spam.
Some of the choke point stuff was terrible.
Yeah. So it's cool in cinematic. It has that going for it. But then once you get past, once that initial luster kind of fades away and you're just like gameplay now, it fell short, at least for me.
Yeah. I actually liked some of the gameplay in DICE's first Battlefront more than the second one.
Okay.
In some regards, I felt that the actual infantry combat in the first one had more skill to it than the second one to a degree. Like I don't know. I enjoyed some of it, and it felt less reliant on the hero class progression stuff. Because in fact,
you there were basically pickups on the map.
Yeah.
If you wanted to get them.
Yeah. And I don't know. I preferred that to some degree, but
it had some of the best sound design. You remember that thermal detonator?
Mm-hmm.
One of the coolest sounding sound effects in any video game. I loved that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was great. Good sound design. The visuals were incredible. They scanned all the original assets from like the Lucas Vault. So when you get into an X-Wing, it's like the X-Wing. You're like, oh my God. It's really cool. But I think they're unfortunately doomed to have to check in with Disney on any decision they made. Having spoken with some devs who worked on it, they're like, it was a nightmare. Like, you don't even understand. Like every level
I can only imagine
asset was like had to get approval from like 10 different branches of Disney, you know, like what a nightmare trying to design a video game. Plus then you're kind of locked into having to make like Yoda and Darth Vader like major components of it, and you're like, well, what if that just doesn't play out that well? Like, nope, it's still you just force it in no matter what. We have to have these main characters as part of the gameplay, and you're like, okay, I'll just throw Yoda into this random battle and he's gonna chop everybody up now, you know.
I think it was a fun game. I really liked both, and I recently tried playing the second. Unfortunately, it has a hacker problem, which is too bad.
Yeah.
But
Galactic Contention is really cool, and it has no. I mean, it has different classes in it, but it doesn't have hero classes in it. So, and it plays out fantastically. Like it really is cool watching the droid dropships get blown out of the sky and seeing the Republic gunships circling overhead and doing their beam lasers down. You're like, whoa, this is like exactly what I want from a Star Wars game, aside from some of the squad stuff where you have to you'll die and you're like, oh crap, how do I get back into the combat? Can somebody drive me there
slowly?
Yeah. So it's got that squad stuff that holds it back to a degree. So I don't know. It's really close. I think it's a good experience and that most people should try it out,
especially for a mod.
Yeah. It's 40 gigs too. It's insane.
Holy cow. Holy cow.
It's a lot, but it's worth it if you have squad for sure.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Did you hear about speaking of the mods, did you hear what's going on with Nintendo and the
I mean, Nintendo's always going to be Nintendo. I just feel they're different.
They are different. They do protect their property like nobody's business.
I know. Like there's other companies like Games Workshop that are a bit aggressive with their IP too, but like they don't hold a candle to Nintendo. Nintendo's like, if you play a game on YouTube that's Nintendo, is this still their rule?
I don't know. I don't touch Nintendo games because
but they want like 30% or more of your revenue. It's insane. If you make a video on like Mario Kart or Zelda or something, you know, it's like, what are you guys on, dude?
So for those that are not aware, apparently the company that made Yuzu, which I think is an emulator, is settled out of court, and they're going to have to pay Nintendo $2.4 million because of their emulator,
which is going to kill the company. Most people say it's going to kill the company.
I mean, I'm surprised because it's an emulator, and I don't think emulators usually make a lot of money to begin with.
Was it even a paid emulator? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I didn't look too deeply into it. Now, people are speculating that the reason why this is happening and why others aren't getting sued is that there was a moment where they had like a paid service that was basically the same as Nintendo's. And so that's why Nintendo's going after them, is that they had, as soon as money gets interjected, that's where the problem arises. And they kind of screwed up. They immediately took it down very quickly, but I think that gave them the opening to get sued, and for apparently 2.4 million. So it's a lot.
Okay. I looked up the price of Yuzu, and I'm looking at Yuzu lemons right now. So I don't think that's it, but
could be.
It's a weird thing because I get from Nintendo's perspective, they're like, hey, if you want to play a Nintendo game, you got to go buy the Nintendo game. Like,
right.
we don't want you downloading emulators and then downloading games for those emulators. It is essentially theft to a degree. But they also don't provide good ways for people to play a lot of their old games without emulation. So there's a huge emulation community who's like, yeah, man, I bought Zelda Link to the Past forever ago. I don't have my Super Nintendo anymore. And if I did, I wouldn't want to try and hook it up to my 4K TV and see that nightmare. You know, I'm going to emulate it. And they do let you do some of that with like the Switch and stuff, but like you have to pay a subscription now to some of Nintendo's crap, and it's just stupid. It's like they've made it inaccessible. They have their walled garden
degree. And they just don't ever feel like they want to move out of it. And if anyone tries to like, you know, step into their territory at all, then they get very protective, which I get they should be protective, but at the same time, it feels a little draconic.
Yeah, and also just like there's clearly a huge demand for old school Nintendo games because these are the games that made so many people, if you think about it. These are the games that everybody grew up on playing, your Zeldas, your Marios, your whatever. They have a huge amount of nostalgic capital, and they're not capitalizing on it very much as a company. Like, you remember when they did those NES and SNES little console releases, and they sold out in like half a second. Where like you couldn't get one basically. You had to click the button as soon as they came out, and then they just didn't do it again. You're like, why? There's a demand for it. Just let people buy your old games. They clearly want to play them, and it's too hard to hook up the old stuff now. Or it's a huge pain in the butt, everybody's just buying and downloading emulators. Because there's demand.
It's not even just old games. It's like people on PC want to be able to play on their preferred platform at a decent frame rate. It'd be nice if we just had the ability to do that. Like people would be willing. I feel like a lot of people are not going to pirate something because so someone who's going to pirate something is going to do it because either there's not a great way of buying it directly. I think that pirating went down a lot when like Netflix and stuff first started getting started. It's because like, oh, I can actually just subscribe to a service. I don't have to go to a legal website or something like that and try to download it. So if you give people a avenue to buy something legally on their preferred platform, they're probably going to be more likely to do it. And I think that's something that Nintendo could probably lean into a little bit more, especially for PC. But this is probably wishful thinking. It'll never happen.
Yeah, not unless Nintendo is just doing horribly and they feel like they need to. Which, I mean, it seems like both due to the times, Microsoft and PlayStation are leading into that maybe a little bit more, where they're like, hey, what if we just had games on other devices, you know?
I thought I read somewhere that they're like a million PC codes or a million copies of Zelda or something were stolen because of the emulators. It's like, well, were those million people even going to ever buy the game in the first place? Like, were those million people?
How many of those people bought it in the first place and just want to
download it on the emulator
on a different platform now? Because Nintendo hasn't updated their game systems in like how many years? You know,
right?
It's just, I don't know. Love the company, grew up playing all their games, but they're just sort of, like you said, draconian, just kind of weird and slow and odd about how they want people to play their games and making it inaccessible to many, you know. Especially I hate their subscription crap, which is like subscribe to Nintendo whatever and then you can play like it's just like, come on guys, you got to subscribe and then buy it through the little service. It's just dumb.
Because they make incredible games. I mean, they wouldn't be in their position if they weren't. They do make amazing games, but I agree. They seem a little outdated with their policies. At least compared to the rest of the world. Yeah.
I wanted to give a solo developer a little bit of a shout out because he's kickstarting his game. Did you play this one? Did you play Out of Action?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So it's a solo dev. He's making a game in Unreal 4, I think. It looks incredible. Like if you look up YouTube videos on Out of Action, the title will be like solo dev shows AAA games how to make a good FPS or something like that. You know, it's like he's really evolving a lot of the core FPS mechanics in a very cool way. I feel like the game's very playable, very innovative. It's very cool. He's been self-funding and doing it by himself for like years. And now he's doing a Kickstarter to, I think, just really try and make a final push to get this into a final state. It's not asking for a lot. I think it's like 50,000 euros. So around
That's not too bad.
Yeah, around 60,000 US dollars. And I think you can get the game for like $15. So I would say check out Out of Action if you want to support a cool project like this. The developer's name is Doku, and I think he's about halfway there. I just want to make sure he actually gets funded. So I think it's a freaking impressive
he's making a
project.
neat title. I'm not really sure what like the gameplay loop will be in the long run, because I played the demo and it was just against bots in like a small little arena.
Yeah.
But is it going to be multiplayer?
It is multiplayer. So I was playing multiplayer with him and a couple of other content creators.
Oh, that's right. I remember like Tomographic, Jack. I think Jack also was participated, and it looked really neat the way you had like different classes, kind of, or like, no, it wasn't like classes. It was sort of like you build your own class. Like, do you want to have light armor? You just
pick whatever weapon and sort of heavy and stuff. And it's so dynamic in that you can be like, well, I want to be a guy with a minigun and crap loads of tanky armor. And you're like, okay, you can do that. And then somebody else can be like, well, I want to be stealth invisible with a samurai sword. You can also do that. And it honestly balances out pretty well. Like, it's hard to say how well it is balanced because I, haven't spent hours and hours and hours with the game. But the fact that both players are able to kill each other fairly regularly, I'm like, that's pretty impressive, right? To balance minigun tank versus stealth samurai sword dude in a really cool, like,
and it doesn't feel like indie jank. It's got like it's got some polish to it, which it is still janky at times, but it didn't feel like because I've played so many just indie multiplayer titles where like, yep, this has all the similar feel and it's got weight to it, and I'm liking the direction that it's heading. Yeah,
he's just this crazy talented dude. He's like, he's an artist by trade within the game industry, has many years of making really good assets for different video games and stuff. Picked up enough skills along the way to start making his own project. And I think because he's a really good gamer, a really good artist, he avoids a lot of that jank stuff that maybe other games would have, where that's really important to him. So if it looks or feels janky, he's like, I don't like that, and adjusts it until it looks great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's really talented. He's taken so long to make his game because he's doing it by himself, but I think he's just about there. So yeah, if you guys are interested in supporting cool small projects like that, support him. I want to see what he continues to do with the IP, because he's put so much work into it. I think it would make a really cool single player, maybe even,
And the game is called Out of Action.
Out of Action. We can put a link in the podcast description.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Speaking of which, you guys can support our podcast too. We have Patreon. Yeah, I'm supposed to say this earlier during the podcast and maybe even talk about the name of the podcast, when we intro the podcast at some point.
Oh, and not just like come up with random stories about how I like or didn't like certain things like Rhianna's performance.
Yeah, I mean, come up with, we can look at your Twitter account for the evidence, but
it's devoid of like anything.
This is Matt's Twitter account. I'm not feeling well today, guys. I'm not going to stream tonight.
Pretty much.
See you later.
See you later.
What's Matt's previous tweet? Oh, same thing? Like
same
30
thing,
times in a row.
Like about like, every month or two, I'm like, well, I got to take a day off.
Yeah.
I get my 1 day off a month.
Yeah. They let you out. Somebody unchains you from the computer.
Yeah, it's you actually, because apparently, according to my lore, I live under your staircase. It's a nice space, very a lot of room.
Yeah,
but that's the lore, is I live underneath your staircase, and every once in a while you let me out.
Have you seen the Instagram videos of a New York bedroom, single bedroom apartment for?
They're horrible.
$1,200 or something.
Yeah. It's literally it's a closet. It's literally just a closet.
I mean, and that's even generous. I've seen some walk-ins that are way bigger than these people's apartments. And like some of the comments on it were really funny where they're like, I'm pretty sure Harry Potter had a nicer living spot than this. This is insane.
Yeah. There's no cooking space. There's no bathroom. There's no shower. It's literally just a place for you to sleep. And that's it.
Yeah. New York is crazy. And
$1,200 a month.
A lot of these big companies are suffering from the whole back in office mantra, right? Because they always build their studios in a big, expensive city. And then they're like, hey, well, you guys come work for us for a wage that's totally not affordable in the city. Mm-hmm. I remember when I went to, I won't name the company name because I don't want any bad press, but there's a game company in San Francisco, and it's a very cool studio. Yeah. Set up there, and it's right in the heart of downtown SF, so it's all cool, and if people come by it looks neat and you can go out and see stuff. I talked to every single person working there. I was like, do you guys live anywhere near here? And they're like, no, the commute is horrible, we hate it. I was just no. Nobody there makes enough money to even live close to San Francisco, which means you have to commute over like a bridge in rush hour. Like they're spending hours of their day.
Miserable.
Yeah. I don't understand.
And it still costs a lot of money too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The cost for gas, bridge toll, all that crap they're paying, or they're just rooming with like 6 other people in like some apartment in San Francisco.
I remember in college that so I rented. Mm-hmm. It was, I think, around $600 a month.
Yeah.
Which is wild by today's standards. Mm-hmm. Granted, it was a dump, but that's because it's college. And like, I feel like
you were getting overcharged almost certainly too. Because was it a college campus apartment?
Yes.
Yeah, they always charge you
exactly because you're right next to college. Where else are you gonna go, right?
Well, yeah. It's kind of like almost a guaranteed thing. If you sign up early enough, you get a spot, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna charge you $200-$300 more than this should actually cost. So the $600 you paid was also marked way up from what it should have been. Right.
And it was funny. It was my first introduction to landlords, to being borderline thieves. so I remember it was a couple of months before, because I was with a friend. We were gonna be together, not be together, but we were gonna rent together.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, so there's also a cleaning fee, but it wasn't the contract. But he's like, there's a cleaning fee. It's $50. It's $50 each. And we're like, fine, whatever. And so we do that, and then we arrive at the a couple months later, and we're like, it's a trash, like it's a mess. And I literally wiped like a cloth along the window, and it came off black. I'm like, what is this? Like, it's disgusting.
It's mold, probably. That's probably black mold, dude.
Yeah, it was awful. So I had to clean everything, and we went to them. We're like, so what about our cleaning fee? And they're like, what cleaning fee? We're like, what do you mean, what cleaning fee?
Yeah.
And so it's like, this is your best foot forward. Like, this is your introduction to like having a relationship with us, is that you're going to just literally steal from us.
Let's be honest, this is probably the least of the theft that occurs during your college experience.
Oh yeah. And what's funny is that they gave us not all of our money back. They gave us 50% of our cleaning fee back as a thank you, like as a sorry.
They said,
like, I don't.
What cleaning fee? And then they only gave you half of it back.
Yeah,
nice.
It was so weird. It was like, so are you admitting to it? Like, it was not a good look at all.
I mean, holy crap, dude. That's college dorms are gross, man. I remember.
Well, it wasn't a college dorm. That one wasn't a dorm. That was an apartment nearby. Okay. So yeah. Still
pretty gross though. Yeah.
Pretty disgusting.
Those are usually pretty trashy because they're like, well, the college students destroy them, and then another group comes in and destroys them. Why would we fix it up? And they're just like, come on in, you cockroaches.
They had linoleum tile flooring, right? And there was like giant cracks. Like you could see like there's like dirt underneath it. Almost like, did you put this on top of like soil or something? It was ugly. It was terrible.
Nasty, dude. Nasty.
Yeah, college living was pretty gross.
I don't miss that at all. I remember it's crazy how much has changed, but like my wife and I's first apartment in Portland, the city, it was like a 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot for like 1,000 or something.
Okay.
Which is just like unheard of now, you know?
Now, yeah. That's incredible. For 3-bedroom?
Yeah. Wasn't
for
that,
2 people?
It wasn't like a nice place, you know, in terms of like, it wasn't like super fancy or whatever, but in terms of the space and whatnot, like unheard of now. Like good luck.
I remember I was cleaning because I was going to a new place and I was cleaning it, and there was I used a shampoo vacuum cleaner, right? Because
Oh,
you gotta clean up
full tilt. Yeah, you got.
Oh yeah, because it's like I want to be able to not have shoes on when I'm inside because I don't like having shoes on when I'm indoors in my own space. Yeah. And I went over that sucker like 5 times, and every single time it came out dirty. I'm like, how is this still dirty? What do you mean?
That's so vile, dude. That's straight up replace the carpet. Like,
oh yeah, you'd have to.
That carpet must have been so old, man. That must have been.
Well, I had the roommate that I was then living with. He was disgusting. Nice guy, really great guy, but he had literally like mud underneath his desk where he didn't take off his shoes and he just tracked it right into his room, sat down, and so it just pooled there. And so I'm like going through this vacuum cleaner, like, bro, what the hell were you doing? Like, come on.
Oh man, I would have loved to meet college Matimio, you know. Like, it's just funny to hear you're like more the cleanly organized one, and everybody else in college was just a filthy, like just everything disgusting.
Oh, my favorite story was I went to a house party and I went to their bathroom to go to the restroom.
Yeah,
and they had this shower and there was mold all around the bottom. It was basically like but there was a little spot that was a circle, and that was clearly where they would sit, where they would stand. Everyone would stand.
It's so nasty, dude.
It's so disgusting. Oh God, the college kids are gross.
You're bringing it back. You're bringing back memories now. I remember I roomed with 5 other dudes in a 3-bedroom once for college, and one of the guys just like left his like, who the hell uses a washcloth anyway? He left his washcloth in the corner of the shower, and it just started growing mold.
Did he move it? He just left it there?
He just left it there. Nobody wanted to touch it. You know, you're like,
of course no one wanted to touch it.
Yeah. But it like got moldy, and they were like, hey, you know, like, Adam, throw out your freaking washcloth. This is so disgusting, you know, but just like, just nasty, man. Just filthy.
It becomes, what was the tragedy, the commons kind of situation, or not, maybe not that. It's where everyone assumes someone's going to take out the trash, someone's going to vacuum, and no one does because they assume someone else, I'm not going to do it, someone else will do it.
Well, it always ends up being like one person who then ends up hating everybody else, you know, because they're like, I'm the only one who cleans this place, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
I subletted, and there was a guy who had a dog there, and his dog would poop on the carpet, and I came in one night where the lights were off, and I stepped in it, and I dragged it into my room on my shoe. It was not a good night. It was not a good night.
Hey man, this is the shit people go into debt for now, you know? They're like, hey, you want to go into debt preparing for some career that may not exist in the next 4 years? Like, go for it.
I think college is important. Statistically, you're more likely to make more money going to college, but man, I do think it needs some improving for sure.
Yeah, I think you need to go in with a strategy now. Like back in the... It's very romanticized back in the day, like, oh, your college experience, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, that's great and all, but like, I got a freaking degree in art, Matt. I got a degree in art. My parents let me get a degree in art. I did not realize
that my degree isn't any better. I was poli-sci, but mine actually may have been a better choice than yours.
Yeah.
No offense.
No. I mean, like, at this point, I'm like, oh man, all the economics majors were right, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think there's a lot of good jobs in that right now, but
yeah, not really. Probably not.
No, it's like, I don't know, should have done computer science or something, right? Yep. Like they're just
exactly.
What we're saying
I
is,
agree. I do think you need to have a plan now.
Don't follow your passions. Follow the economy. Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
Save your passions for your hobbies, and
it's true.
Become an accountant. Yeah.
But
Although
I do agree.
AI
I do
is
think that
gonna
people
put
need
accountants
a.
out of business pretty soon.
I do think you're right that they need to have people need to have more of a plan and not just wing it, because especially with the price of like colleges these days, it's ridiculous.
Is insane. It's to I think the younger generation is much more approaching it that way nowadays. But I think our generation was very much just like, go your college experience, figure it out, figure out who you are, decide what you want to do. And it's like,
I mean, that's what my dad said. He's just like, go in and you'll figure it out. And I did for the most part. I feel like I'm I came out somewhat well.
Yeah. But I mean, the skill set that I learned from my major,
Oh, I didn't learn any skill sets.
Well, I mean, I guess the knowledge rather, right? You're just like, man, like art history. I slept through half of those ones, I just, it was just not what I was into. And I was just like, okay, that's my major now. I'm doing like print making and stuff.
Well,
paper making classes, Matt. Boy, those were expensive. God damn it.
You made paper?
I made paper, bro, in college.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, even while I was doing it, I was just like, this is such a crock of shit, man. Like, this is insane. That's
almost like basket weaving.
I think basket weaving was an option. I think that one filled up, and then I was like, oh shit, paper making, I guess.
I guess I'll make some paper then,
It is a miracle that I came out of that and did as okay as I'm doing right now.
You're doing well. Yeah.
But you gotta carve out your niche in the world, man. Don't wait for someone. This is really your lines. These are your kind of nuggets of advice.
My
that you
advice.
give people.
Oh yes, because I'm just such a bastion of great advice and knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you gonna buy the toothbrush that can play Doom?
No, I'm not gonna buy the toothbrush. That's a thing now.
What about the lawnmower that can play Doom?
No, I've already got that one. It actually, what's incredible too is that the lawnmower actually sounds like the Doom soundtrack, because Mick Gordon is such an incredible artist. He was able to synthesize the sound of a lawnmower.
Doom, the original Doom, though, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not the latest Doom. My God, that would be impressive if you could play that on a toothbrush.
That would be super impressive.
Holy crap.
I was more just referring to the music, because when I think Doom right now, I think of music.
Yeah,
I love that stuff so much.
The original Doom wasn't like Trent Reznor involved in the music on one of the Doom games?
I have no idea.
I think he was, but yeah, no, it's just become kind of a meme where they always get Doom up and running on some peasant device,
Yeah,
like,
I've got it on my fridge.
Yeah. So somebody had it running on their toothbrush, and it became like a meme, and then somebody else loaded it onto their lawnmower screen. I was like, that's pretty funny, actually. That's pretty impressive. That game's just gonna be like the game forever. I don't think Doom's going anywhere. Well, should we wrap up the pod? Should I tell people?
Sounds good.
Where they can, you guys can find us all now on all the podcasting platforms, all the good ones anyway. I've delegated the podcast distribution to somebody more responsible than myself, so it will now be coming out on regular times. You're welcome.
Perfect.
If you would like to support the podcast beyond just watching it on, say, YouTube, you can become a Patreon member. And Patreon members get to watch the podcast recorded live on Mondays. The time is on the Patreon site. And also, after the podcast is over, we do like a little fireside chat type thing, me and Matt, where we let our real emotions out. Let's just say.
We really cut loose.
We get into it, guys, and we have more of a conversation session going on with you in the chat. So it's fun. I think we charge like $10 a month for the Patreon. Not too bad. So if you want to support us, go that extra mile. We do appreciate it very much. Otherwise, we enjoy you nonetheless. Comment on our videos. Give us some suggestions on what you want us to do for the next podcast. And Matt is going to take us away with some incredibly useful advice.
So my useful piece of advice is that motivation is fleeting. And if you actually do want to accomplish your goals or achieve something, discipline and or forming good habits is the better way of going about it. Because each morning you wake up, You may not want to go to the gym, or you may not want to make your bed or do that, whatever it is. But if you get into a rhythm, if you get into a habit of it, you are much more likely to continue doing that thing instead of just relying on motivation all the time. So, yeah.
Very, very good advice. I would say, you could apply that to checking Discord messages regularly and that kind of stuff, Matt, make it like a habit.
I saw your message and I figured I would talk to you because I wasn't entirely sure what we were going with. This is an entirely different thing. LevelCap's throwing shade at me right now because I didn't respond to his messages.
It's excellent advice. If you rely on your emotion to get through stuff, you will be doing it for about a week.
Yeah.
Maximum. Get some habits out there, people. And thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I didn't just disconnect all of my USB devices as I kick some hub on the ground and lights started flickering. Good. Okay, great. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Bye.